mortgage broking companies have started up in Australia in the last 5 years. You know, those in New Zealand, Mike Perro started the industry down there, and obviously the Australians still haven't cottoned on and used his system, even though I believe it's still the best one out there. But you've got to look at this stuff and you say, everyone sees these gold mines and they start digging. Well, hang on. What did I set up? I see a perceived gold mine of everyone getting into their own small business. So what do I set up? A business that's on the sideline coaching and educating small business people. You know, I'm just about to sign a deal in China where my information is going to be put into a university degree in China. I'm like, cool. I'll have my own university degree. So and I'm wondering if that means I get a doctorate. But you know, the funny thing about it is I make Chinese yuan, which is worth nothing basically, unless it's left in China. But it's a bit of fun to do. So you've got to look, and what are the perceived gold mines? So here's a question for you on your table. What are the perceived gold mines of the next 10 years? What are the perceived gold mines of the next 10 years do you believe? Who's got any ideas? What do you think? What are some of the perceived gold mines of the next however many years? Please jump up to the mics if you've got an idea.
Super funds.
Super funds, okay. Super funds have definitely been growing, and they've been growing all over the world. Why are super funds growing, by the way? Governments are legislating that they have to have money put into them. Now, not just here in Australia, all around the world. So the question is, what can you provide to those providing super funds? Does that make sense? Okay, they're going to need it.
My dad and I were discussing the service industry because people are getting busier and more stressed out these days, and they're hiring people to wash cars and mow the lawns and all that sort of things.
Absolutely. The service industry has been growing very much so over the last 10 years. The interesting part about both of those two that you've come up with is we're 10 years too late on both of those. Okay, and that unfortunately is the challenge for the majority of people. They start to get into stuff 10 years after it started. What has started in the last year or so to start to take root that you may be able to jump on the bandwagon of? So this is what you need to look at continuously if you're going to change businesses. Because in your lifetime, how many businesses will you be in? How many? You might have dozens, mightn't you? If you see it as just one, you're going to have a challenge. You need to be looking at it as you'll have dozens of businesses. I'm going to leave you with that question overnight. I want you to think about that. So, there's 6 steps to building anything. Step 1, everybody call it out for me. What is step 1? Mastery. What is mastery, folks? You just go back. What is mastery? Okay, how do you know when you are a master of something? Someone comes and asks you, will you teach me how to do this? It's the old grasshopper theory, you know, grasshopper. I'll teach you. But mastery is step 1. Here's the challenge with most people when they go into business. Do they do mastery of running a business? No, what do they do mastery of? Being a carpenter, or they're a master at engineering, or a master at being an accountant, or a master at being a lawyer, or whatever it is that they master. Does that make sense? You need to become a master at running a business. Stage 2, oh, hang on, oh wait. Step 2 is you must find your own what? Niche or niche or whatever it is you want to pronounce it as. How do you know that you don't have a niche in the marketplace? You compete on price. The day you compete on price, you do not have a niche. Step 3 up the ladder. We go mastery, niche, then what? Everybody, we go what? Leverage. The key to leverage in business is systems, the 4 areas that we talked about, but systems is one of the main keys. Then we build a team, then we get synergy, ultimately we then hit results. Okay, that is the 6 steps that we need to get massive results in growth. Now here's my challenge with that. Do you think the average business is missing 1 or 2 of these areas, yes or no? Yeah. Which one does most businesses miss? All of the above, okay. Well, do most business owners do business mastery? No, they don't. What do? Technical job mastery. They're great at their technical job, but very few of them do mastery of sales, marketing, accounting, finance, team building, leadership, legals, taxation, structuring, etc., 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 etc. If you are not master of all of those, you are going to have a challenge, yes or no? Yeah. So then we go into niche. Do most businesses find a niche? Most of them kind of do. Their niche is we're the only one in our area. You know, I'm the electrician for southwest area, or you know, for this suburb, or that's their niche. Or cheaper than anyone else. Why would you do business if you were cheaper than anyone else? If you got good marketing, do you need to be cheaper? No, good marketing means you can be more expensive. So then we put leverage into play. Once you have a niche, then it's worth leveraging. But most businesses don't have a niche to start with. They compete on price. Let's just talk about that for a second. Can you niche yourself on something as stupid as giving away chocolates when you do stuff? Yes or no? Yeah. I had a company and they were a scales, what's the word I'm looking for? Calibration company. So when you put scales in, they sold you the scales into hospitals. They sold them everywhere, basically. They had everything from trade through to hospitals and that sort of thing. So they would have to go in every month and do a service of that scale and calibrate it to make sure it was weighing properly. Does that make sense? So they would then leave a Mars bar sitting on this thing and with a little note attached saying, your scales are now calibrated as your Mars bar weighs exactly, and they'd write in the exact weight of the Mars bar. Now, you'd think, oh yeah, that's just a simple little customer service thing. One of their biggest contracts was a major hospital in Victoria. And they walked out of this, and here's how the deal happened. Basically, they came to tender, because it was a 2-year tender process with this one hospital. They came to tender, and the guy, he walked in and saw the manager, and he said, when's the tenders due? He said, oh, we're not doing tender this time. What do you mean? He said, well, if you guys can just give us the pricing of the contract for the next couple of years, that'll be fine. He said, but you guys always go to tender. You know, he was a bit dumbfounded as the salesman, and basically what the guy said to him, he said, but you guys are the chocolate guys, we couldn't get rid of you. And it's like something that stupid gave them a niche. You know, so what is it that you do to get yourself a niche out there in the marketplace? My dentist, Paddy Lund, I mean, how many of you have read Paddy's book, Building the Happiness-Centered Business? If you haven't gone, you can order it from the team up the back. But Paddy talks about a very simple philosophy, and he's a totally different way of running it. But when you go to his dental practice, any of you heard about Paddy's place? A couple of you have. Paddy is my dentist, so when I go there, you go to the front door, there is no sign up saying it's a dental practice, there's just a golden shaped apple, okay, because that's his symbol, it's a gold apple. You go up to the front door, it's locked, you have to ring the doorbell. And once you ring the doorbell, your care nurse comes to greet you. My care nurse, her name's Pat. Pat comes to greet me, she gives me a hug, she says, come on in. She shows me to my waiting room. Because what Paddy worked out was that when people want dentistry, they'd rather wait on their own, but they want their work done where there's a lot of other people around. Exact opposite of what most dental practices are, where people have to wait with everybody and then get their work done in a room confined by themselves where they can't see anyone else and they're all worried, you know, what the heck's he going to do with that drill? So I go into my room. How do I know it's my room? On the front door, it has a golden apple, and underneath it says, this room is especially prepared for Brad Sugars, and it has my photo underneath. So why do they put my photo there? So that every time anyone that's new in their office walks past and they see my photo, then when they go to the front door, they can greet me by name. So I go in there, they serve me tea in silver tea strainers, like it's all silver with fine bone china. And he says to you, what would you like a tea? Oh yes, thanks. What type would you like? Oh, what do you have? And they hand you a menu. There's 60-something different varieties of tea. Now, has this guy built a niche in the dentistry industry, yes or no? Yeah. Another one of my clients who's a dentist in Palmerston North in New Zealand. He has the goggles you put on, which is the virtual reality goggles, and he plays a video into these goggles while you're there getting your teeth done. So you can watch whatever show you choose. You pick a thing off of the video library before you go in, and you say, here, I'll watch that one, thanks. So you're watching Mr. Bean while you're getting your teeth done. And you just don't laugh too much. Sorry. So finding a niche can be perceived or it can be real. Some companies have niched themselves on simple things like giving their company a personal name to it, putting a person on a TV ad, you know. But we still look, and when you watch TV, when you read the newspapers, 90% of ads are still what type of ads? Name, rank, serial number, price. Yeah, they sell some benefits, but they still have this price focus that blows my mind. Because there's a simple rule in business. Is business about turnover? No, what's it about? Profit. You know, still blows my mind the number of business owners that still think bigger is better. Your bigger profit is better. That doesn't mean you need more people. I had a friend of mine in North Queensland at an insurance company, and I was talking to him about this fact, and he came back to me because I said, go and do your numbers and tell me what percentage of your clients are profitable. He said, they're all profitable. I said, no, they're not. Go back and work it out. Anyway, he came back to me. 87% of his clients were not profitable clients. 13% of his clients gave him 80-something% of his income. 13% gave him over 80% of his income. So he had a staff of 30 working to take care of the other 87%. So you think about that, all of a sudden, hey presto, if he got rid of that 87% of his customers, he could get rid of 30 staff, which was all bar 2. So he's removed how much overhead? He's removed over 80% of his overhead, which brought him only, it was like 20%, it was less than 20% of his income. Profitability went up 900%. Even though he reduced the size of his company by more than 5/6. There was less than 1/6 of his company there. But his profit went through the roof. What do you think happened to his headaches? See, bigger is not always better, folks. Bigger profit is better, not necessarily bigger revenues. Keep that in the back of your mind. So leverage, team, then the synergy happens, and then results. We're going to get into each and every one of these as we go through the next few days. So many years ago, in fact in 1993, I sat in Hawaii with 3 other gentlemen in particular. A gentleman by the name of Keith Cunningham was teaching us. He was teaching myself, a whole bunch of others, but 2 notables in the crowd were Robert Kiyosaki and John Burley. How many of you have been to either of their seminars? Great. If you haven't, please go to them. They're very valuable information they'll teach you. And Keith taught us this simple flip charts. Robert's now written a very famous book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, based on this exact information. The simple accounting point of view of life: income and expenses, assets and liabilities. How many of you have read Robert's book? Good. Now, the reason I want to teach you this is because this applies to business more so than it does to your own job. Let me show you why. When you have a job, it gives you income. First way to use your income is to use it all in expenses, which makes you what? Everybody makes you what? Poor. Second way is to put some of it down. Well, you borrow enough because you're making enough so that you can go out there, and then most of it goes out through expenses of paying back the liabilities. So you end up being what class? Middle class. And last but not least, we have those that invest some of it into assets which throw off income, and therefore you have to become what? Hello, everybody? Rich. Now, let's take a look at this from a business perspective. The average small business, the average business owner, Do they invest much of their income back into assets for the business, yes or no? The average one, not good ones, the average one. No, they don't. What if some of the profit you were making you turned into loans that go out to other people? What if some of the profit you made you turned it into? See, just because it's your business doesn't mean it doesn't have to do what you would do as a person investing that money. Does that make sense? See, why is it sometimes better to leave your money in your business? Tax rates. It's better to invest it under the business, or if you can, in your own self-managed super. Well, other than in New Zealand, self-managed super in New Zealand is a complete waste of time. For those that don't know why, because the tax rates are exactly the same as the tax rates for a business, which makes no sense, but a lot of things Helen Clark does makes no sense to me. So, when we're in business, what is it that kills more businesses than anything ever? Lack of knowledge? No. Cash flow. Why? What do most small businesses do because they're starting out, they don't have much money? How do they buy everything? On lease. So what kills most small businesses is, let's just do a quick chart here. Here's your average small business. Every single month, that business has X amount of dollars that they have to spend because they've leased stuff or they've got long-term payments, etc., etc. Does that all make sense to everybody? Now, they also have some variable costs which are basically dependent upon the amount of sales. Does that make sense? So, if this is the amount of dollars they have to spend every single month, what happens if sales are along here and then they have a really bad month? What happens in that bad month? They then go out to 30 days credit with all of their suppliers. Does that make sense? Now, if they were already on 30 days credit because they'd had one bad month beforehand and now they have another bad month, all of a sudden, what are they out to with all of their creditors? 45 to 60 odd days now. And then all it takes is that third bad month and they're dead because they're now out to 90 days. And who have they not paid? Well, the tax man, someone just said it. Who is the biggest person, the biggest group that put people into bankruptcy in the world? Taxation departments. Because people think, oh, I just won't pay the tax. That's why they put everyone into bankruptcy, because they're the last ones to get paid. People pay their staff wages, they pay their creditors, because they need to pay them to keep running and get supplies. But eventually the tax man catches up with them and puts them into bankruptcy. And it's that physical ongoingness, that's why they get the liabilities, and that's what kills most small businesses. Does that make sense? Yes? No? Okay. So that's why I bring that up. But, you know, you can, in your own small business, invest in assets. See, when you're in a business, do you have to buy brand new stuff? How many of you have been to the auctions to set up your business? Like, when you go to an auction, how much do you pay for a desk? I know in my town it's $10, $5 for the chair. Have you all been to those sort of auctions? You know, and you go and set things up with this, and it's just a walk in the park. But most small business people, what do they go and buy? Brand new desk from Officeworks with the leather chair. Leather chairs are $20 at the auction usually. You know, they spend $600 on a leather chair that we all buy for $20 in 2 years when they go broke. I say this because I really mean it, folks. You've got to do it by the skin of your teeth when you first start out. So this is the reason why it works this way. Poor and middle class get their income, they pay tax, they spend some money, and then with what's left over, what do? They save it. They don't invest it, they save it. Rich and wealthy people, they get their income, they invest some, then they spend, and with what's left over, what do? Pay tax. But unfortunately, there's always very little left over. That's the facts, folks. It's just a simple difference in the two mindsets. I need you to have this mindset for what we're going to do in the next few days to work. So let's start talking about marketing. I'm going to give you the general overview of it first, and then we'll get into some more finite details of how to market your business. Then we'll put you into groups, and you can actually discuss how you're going to do it in your business with some of the coaches. So marketing in my books is two things. It's about communication and what, folks? Come on, guys, call it out for me. Communication and education. So let me tell you why this has come about the way it has. Let's once and again do our little history lesson. Where did selling first start? How did we sell things? Did we actually sell or did we trade first of all? We traded, we bartered goods. Who with? Our next door neighbour. How come? Because they were already 20 miles away. Then we brought things into the village and everyone came into the village and traded. Okay? Who were you buying things off of when that happened? Person that made it. Does that make sense? Like the person that grew the turnips was selling them to you, so they told you how to cook turnips. Yeah, and so on and so forth. Eventually we went from the market situation where we were trading and bartering, we went into a basic general store format. I still remember it vividly. My grandmother, I must have been 5 years old, my grandmother took me to Kmart, and she walked out of Kmart saying, I know more than the person that works in the shop. And I'm like, yeah, Grandma, because they work at Kmart, that's why. But to her, that was such an insult because when she grew up as a kid, she went to the general store, and if you had a problem, the general storekeeper, what did they do? Told you what to buy, how to fix it. Oh yes, you need this and this and this. It's kind of like a good hardware store now. Does anyone know like a good hardware store where you go in there and you say to the guy behind the counter, hey, I want to build a who's me what's it? And he says, oh, you'll need a fling-a-dinger and a this and a that and a this and a that. And you go, oh, that's excellent, thanks, mate.